Welcome back to my channel. Do you know there are people who are getting richer month by month, week by week, day by day during these times when we are struggling to make our ends meet? Who are those? How could they do it? Have you ever thought the economy is in shambles, but why the stock market is reaching its height? We're going to talk about this and a lot more. Stay tuned and welcome to my point of view. Before we go any further, can I request the new viewers to click on the subscribe button below so that they can become part of the community, and let's discuss and try to make a difference. Welcome. Now let's talk about us, a common man. In US, 40 million people filed for unemployment during this pandemic. If you look at the population of Canada, 3 million people have lost their jobs during these 2 months of March and April of 2020. Small businesses have closed down because they cannot bring in the customer with this social distancing. Their finances, their rent to be paid, their salaries to be paid, and there are many more expenses. Many people have been evicted from their homes because they cannot pay the mortgages. They simply don't have the jobs, the livelihood to pay up. And the authorities were just looking at it. They did not do anything. There are single parents who are not eating enough so that they can ensure their children are fed. That's one extreme of people, the people like us. There's another extreme of people that we're going to talk about today. Billionaires in US saw their net worth jump by around $500 billion. During this pandemic, if we look at some examples, now the founder of Amazon, Jeff Bezos, his wealth soared by around $47 billion. Take another example, former Microsoft CEO, Steve Ballmer. His net worth increased by $15.7 billion. If we talk about Elon Musk, probably I have talked about him a lot more than anything else. His wealth increased by around $17 billion during this time. And closer to home, we talk about Mukesh Ambani. His net worth first dropped, but then it saw in the last 4 months a jump of around 85%. That is the extreme, other extreme that we're talking about. Now we know some of them, and we know many of us. Let's see how they can do it. What are the things which are making it possible? Before we go any further and to the next section, there are 2 points that I bring to everybody's notice. We've been talking about the impact of COVID. We've been talking about how people are making use of it. Some of the smart people. There are people who are getting richer. This is something which is not just started in the pandemic. This is something which has started long back. Wealthy people wants to become richer. They are greedier than the greedy people. Now, from 1990, if you look at the stats, the amount of taxes they've been paying has come down by around 79%. Their wealth has increased manifolds, but the taxes have been paid are just a trivial part. Another example is the Corporate Transparency Act, which some of us are aware of. Now, in US, this act came in because they are supposed to regulate billionaires who are using the shell companies to hide their true wealth. Now, though this act was passed in the House, but it has not come to the Senate for vote. You see, and God knows when it's going to come. It's not that we are jealous of why some people are making billionaires. It is the inequality that we are worried about, that what we want to talk about. It's not the spirit of capitalism that we are talking about, but the scourge of greediness and of inequality amongst men that we are talking about. Let's go to the next section and see how they do it, why these things are happening. Stay tuned. Why and how the rich are getting richer. There are a lot of examples, and there are a lot of points that we can talk about. But let us stick to the top 6 points which I think are making the most impact. Number 1 is, now in many countries like Canada, they give out the money to the needy people so that they can pay their rent, they can pay mortgages, and they can pay for their essentials. But all this money is getting at the end accumulated to the wealthy people, because they are the ones who own those lands, who own that service, who own those buildings. Number 2, when we talk about recession, when we talk about difficult times like this, we always, from the government side, we hear about bailouts, we hear about some kind of a stimulus to the economy. Now those bailouts, those stimulus so-called, are unequal. They're going to the certain section of the economy, certain industries. That stimulus is ending up somewhere in the stock market. So what is happening is, when the COVID started, the stock market crashed, and it was temporary. But when the economy is in shambles, the stock markets are reaching its height. They are in their bull run. It's because all those money, the bailouts that we talk about, are getting accumulated and getting invested in the stocks, and hence it is going up. In other words, stocks are no more barometers of economy. If economy is not doing good, stock market is supposed to reflect the status, but that's not what is happening. It's the other way around at this point of time. Now, this is certainly not driven by valuation. It's very volatile. It's not safe for a common investor. So this is a kind of bubble. Now the sad part is when the bubble will burst, and if it will burst, who is going to come to the rescue? The sad part is, it's your money that's going to come to the rescue. The government is going to come in. It's the taxpayers' money which is going to get invested, so that those greedy people are being given more money. Another factor is the performance of the stock market. Now, if you take examples, now many of these wealthy people, they in fact invest in companies, they invest in stocks. Now in US, 10% of the billionaires, the wealthy people, actually own nearly 84% of the stocks. Now in Canada, 1%, the top 1% own 25.6% of the wealth, and most of those wealth are invested in stocks. Naturally, the stock prices have to be manipulated so that it remains high and it remains profitable for them, and it goes higher than what you ever thought of. Let's go to the next point. Point number 4. Now, some of the reasons are very understandable. For example, now during this COVID times, when we all are staying home and we are advised not to go out too much, even if we go out, we have to maintain the social distancing. Now, during these times, we are using more and more of the digital platforms. We are using more of the TVs, and when it comes to shopping, we are using more of the online platforms like Amazon. And hence, companies like this are making more money than usual, and which is understandable. That's why they are getting richer. And also, if you see, another reason is when the COVID started and there were announcements of the lockdowns. So because of that, panic buying occurred, and many people actually bought a lot of stuff which were not needed, and they started hoarding all those things. How it impacted those hypermarkets, those companies, is that they had more money because they sold more than they could have. Let's go to the next point. Now, some of the corporates made use of this time, these difficult times, by cutting down the increments, but by not giving the bonuses which are due, by not employing enough people, and by burdening the existing staff with more and more. So this some way has also impacted their earnings and a little up in terms of their overall profits. And last but not the least, some of the entrepreneurs, they are smart people. They have made use of this time to increase their wealth, and they saw the opportunities when the other people are in distress, and they bought off a lot of those companies. They also made those strategic alliances which brought more valuation to their existing company. Near home, one such example is Mukesh Ambani. When the COVID started, his net worth actually dropped by 28%. But during the last 4 months, the valuation increased by 85%. And how he could do it? He used this time to make strategic alliances with best of the companies like Facebook, Google, etc. Smart move. Now, in my point of view, there are 2 points that I like to talk about. The easy availability of the medical facilities and the essentials. We as an individual should make a difference. We should reach out and be ready to help each other out. Okay. Number 2 is something which many people will say that I'm a socialist, but I'm not a socialist, is there should be a surcharge to the big corporates that should be applied. And how this surcharge should be calculated is, if before the introduction of the COVID, say the company is making 30% of the profit, and during the COVID times, the profit increased to 50%. So there was a jump from 30% to 50%. So there is an extra profit which came in. It's good that they earned because of XYZ reasons that we talked about. But remember, we're not talking about the spirit of capitalism. We are talking about this crouch of inequality. So that 20%, whatever the extra profit that comes, should be actually distributed in providing the essentials to the public. We don't expect government to do everything, right? The big corporates can do it, which seldom happens. Otherwise, that's the tax which should be given during these difficult times, and that money should be redistributed to the public through the government organization, so that that money is used properly, not for any scams or anything, but that money should go in for the medical facilities, for the essential vaccines, for the extra beds that's required, for paying out to the people who could not earn, right? So with these 2 suggestions, please feel free to express your point of view in the comments below, and let us know what else can we do better. Thanks for watching so far. Stay safe.